Hey there, friend. Welcome to the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I am your host, Shannon Warner. This podcast is all about taking a few moments for yourself and reconnecting to the amazing woman behind the title of mom. You have so many plates spinning at any given time between your kids, your partner, your job, maintaining a household, etc., etc. But where does taking time just for you play into that? Let's spend some time together, you and me, right now. We're rebranding a mom moment to those sacred moments you take to fill your cup first. Let's connect, tune in, and tap into what makes us the incredible women that we are. We'll nurture ourselves first so we can be our best selves for those we pour into on a daily basis. We'll also bask in the beautiful wisdom of other moms to learn about the ways in which they've tapped into alignment in their own motherhood journeys. Come on, mama, it's your time. We're having a mom moment. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I am your host, Shannon Warner, and I am so grateful that you have taken your precious time to join us here today. Yes, I know I said I was taking a break, and I had full intentions of taking a multi-week break, but turns out I am obsessed with this podcast, and I cannot quit. Never fear, I have taken time to rest and recharge, and I am excited and ready to jump back into things. First, I'm hosting the 2024 Tune Up and Tune In workshop. We're going to meet 4 times over 4 weeks for an hour each week. And we're just going to check in and assess where we're at and energetically re-grab the reins of our lives and start heading in the direction that we actually want to go and stop letting life happen to us and start making life happen for us. Yes. Exactly that. So those details are in the show notes. The investment is very small, but I want you to have some skin in the game, so you show up. All the details are in the show notes for you. Also, our guest today is Sadie Bohnenkamp. Before we get into the episode, I want to make sure that you are aware of this retreat that she is hosting at the end of February. It is February 29th in beautiful Sedona, Arizona. It is a Be Better adventure. All the decisions and plans are made for you. You just have to get yourself there and you show up and say, ooh, yes, please. This sounds great. If this sounds up your alley and if Sadie sounds like your kind of lady, like definitely check it out. All the links are in the show notes and treat yourself to Sedona. Sedona in the middle of winter. I guess it's not winter. Is it still winter? I don't know. February in Michigan is still very much winter. So Sedona and February sounds so magical. So those details will be in the show notes as well. Make sure you jump on it if that sounds exciting to you. So as I mentioned, our guest is Sadie Bohnenkamp, and you'll hear about all of the different plates she has spinning in the air. She does it all. But Sadie says it took her a while to realize the gift of a rather volatile childhood. But nearing age 50, all that feels like strength training for emotional wellness. If she can share a few tricks to help others do hard things gracefully, to step boldly into a new adventure, or feel confident in their own skin, she's here for that. She likes to chat about being unapologetically you, taking action to eliminate fear and mindset mantras, to move past whatever is keeping you stuck. She's fantastic. Let's get into it. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hi, Sadie. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
I'm excited. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Oh my gosh. I think that with most moms, the better question is, what don't you do?
Yes.
I'm currently in the battle of, and I think many moms can relate, like being a mom. I have an older son now, but a W-2 job, and trying to grow my own business and my own future. So that constant battle of, am I doing enough at anywhere I show up? Am I doing too much? That's what I do. So I work at a university in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm also growing this Feel, Do, Be Better community, because I fully believe that when people feel better, they'll do better. And when we do better, ultimately we'll be better. And a lot of women, moms especially, need permission to do things that get them to that feel better state. It's like step one for that growth, and permission is huge right now. I think if I can offer that, that makes me happy. That brings me joy. So yeah, we also invest in real estate. That's like a side thing too. So back to what don't I do?
I would say that's not nothing. You're just like, oh, this sides thing. Like, I don't know how involved you are, but real estate is never like a small
Just
undertaking.
yeah, the buzzword with real estate is that it's passive. And for some people it might be passive, but it's not always passive. Like I do
Mm.
stuff, right? So I collect the rent, I set up the systems behind the scenes, furnish the furnished rentals, communicate with our guests. So passive-ish, ish.
Okay. So W-2 job, working in the university, you're
Yep.
married, you have a child.
Mhm.
How old is your child?
He's 17. We're also hosting an exchange student this year who's 16. So, why not? Why not do that too?
I had an extra child, and then you've
Yes.
got real estate on this side. Is it short-term rental? Is that
We have 3 long-term and 4 doors that are short-term and medium term. So, you know, yeah,
oh,
depending on who you talk to, that's a lot or like nothing. It depends on who
mm,
your audience is, what that portfolio is like. So,
wow. Okay, first of all, goals. That is like one of the, like, I feel like my husband and I will feel like we have officially made it, like, once we start having real estate, like, investment properties, total goals. Love that. Do you know your human design by chance?
yes. So I'm a manifestor.
Yeah,
Mhm.
obviously. Okay.
Does it seem obvious? I listened to a meditation that was strictly for manifestors, and the whole time I was like, yes, 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 all the things.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I'm fairly new to that human design world. Like I just recently learned about it, and I think it's so uncanny how precise it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yes. Yeah.
Are you also a manifestor?
No, I'm a projector, so I'm waiting for an invitation.
Okay. All right.
So,
Well, that's
yeah.
great to know though, because I have so many questions about that. Because my son, I had him do it because I think there's value in knowing me, but there's even more value in knowing what's going on with the people I live with and communicate
Yes.
with. He is, which is so in opposition to how I show up. So the things that I think he should do, it doesn't work for him. He's like,
Right.
that's ridiculous. No one does that. I'm like, everyone does that. And he's like, no. I'm like, yeah. So I have to step back and be like, okay, let me imagine that this wasn't the most natural way for me to show up. What would it feel like if someone told me to do that? Like really scary, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's tricky for me.
And as a projector, hearing all the things that you're doing, I'm just like, I don't think energetically I could ever show up for all of those pieces. Like, there's no way on top of parenting and being a partner to somebody.
Mm-hmm. So it's just, I guess that's the beauty of it. When they, what was the show? Like it takes all the different strokes, right? All the different kinds of people. And it does. It does. Thank
Mm-hmm.
goodness. Thank goodness not everyone is me. My husband says that all the time. He's like, if everyone was like you, the world would be exhausted. I'm like, or not, because they'd maybe be like me. But I get it. Like I
Yeah.
do make people feel exhausted. I show up and I just, they're like, you're a lot. I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm a lot.
Oh, I like it though. There's a space for all of us, right?
There is. And
Yeah.
so, I think learning, especially in a marriage, that because I'm like this and I'm self-aware, I don't expect you also to be like me. I don't expect you to be like me. So then fair's fair. You can't expect me to be like you. We're all
Mm-hmm.
here as us, and that's perfect, right? It's exactly as it should be. So it
Exactly.
took us a minute to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of permission, I think human design, if any of the listeners haven't checked out their human design yet, should definitely do so because for me, it gave me a lot of permission to continue showing up in a way that made me feel comfortable, which when you're trying to create a business is really challenging. Like your energy type is
Yep.
probably having an easier experience building something than someone like me where I do feel like I have to wait for the invitation. Like I don't usually speak up unless I'm invited in. So it's all doable, but we all show up differently and that's okay.
Yeah, it's totally okay. It's actually great that we all show up differently. And I think every human design probably, if we stay true to it, right, it brings with it the permission we need but then also the challenges, I think there are challenges that go with each, so yeah, I do show up with a lot of energy and a lot of ideas and action. I'm very action. And you can be met with resistance to that, where people are like, that's too much. That's too much. You can't do that much, and so then you might second guess yourself a little bit. So,
but you can do that much. But me as a projector, I'm like, oh, I'm exhausted. Like,
yeah.
go you. I'm tired thinking about the load.
Yes, I get that. I get it.
Yeah. I love to be in the energy though of people like you, because I'm like, cool. I love it. Like, I want to be in it. And when I'm ready to tap into that same energy, like, it's available for me and it hypes me up, but I need my rest.
So then how does that look? So, I think that all of the different designs, like, they can all complement each other. Too many manifestors in a room might just compete, perhaps. So as a manifestor, then I think I need some projectors, and then I can be the inviter. Like, I'll invite you. Hey, what do you think about this? I see you being really good at this, and then inviting in, right? That giving that valid invitation to a projector. Have you seen that happen in your world? Is that kind of what you're talking about?
When people recognize something in me, I'm like, thank you, or sometimes I haven't even noticed it myself. But I mean, it was my 11th grade global studies teacher. And I was always a good student.
Yep.
But he pulled me aside after class, and I was like, uh-oh, I'm a good student. Why am I getting pulled aside? And he was like, you're a really good writer. Did you know you're a really good writer? And I was like, well, I thought it was okay. Like, I can put a sentence together and like edit and proofread, but he's like, you're really good. Like, you should really keep working on this. And I was like, huh, thank you. So I really appreciate when someone like validates something about me. And that's like an invitation in itself for me to continue on whatever that is. So
yeah, definitely.
It's helpful.
Yeah.
So if you don't know people in your circle, but you recognize something in them, like tell them like, hey, you're really badass at this if you didn't know. Yeah. They might need that, like me.
Yeah. And it's not gonna wreck somebody if you tell them something that they're good at.
Right.
Right? That's never going to be a bad choice.
Yeah. So right. Oh, for anybody in any scenario, like I'm all about like, let's just be kinder to each other. Like, let's just spread some more love. Totally. Such a tangent, but I think it's so good.
Right. That's where some of the best lessons are, is in the tangents.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your own motherhood journey?
No, that's fine. It's actually interesting. It was hard. I'm surprised I'm a mother. 2 reasons. First of all, I grew up in a really volatile home. Alcoholic stepdad, divorce, custody suits. There's just a lot of drama to it. I watched my mom. She divorced my dad early on because she was like just not ready to be a wife. And then she moved on and married this other guy. Anyway, I saw marriage being not awesome. My example of it was like, looks like really a lot of work and not much reward, and it ends badly, right? So first of all, marriage was not like a thing that I was striving for. But obviously I did get married, and then and I'm glad I did. I feel like I am married to the human that I'm supposed to be married to, and it has not been any of those things that I grew up with. But then we were married for 7 years and no baby, no trying to prevent them, and no one saying anything definitive like, here's why, or here's what's wrong, and here's how we combat it. It was like, I don't know. So then you start to feel like, I guess I just don't deserve one. I guess like all of the stories, because there's a lot of people in the world that are conceiving that don't want babies, are making kind of risky life choices. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that seems unfair. So you go through that, all of it. And I'm sure you've confronted this, having this particular platform. You don't talk about it. You don't talk about the fact that you can't conceive, or the hardship of it or the emotions of it, you know, then your friends are all having babies and you're happy for them and you're sad for you, but you don't talk about it because it's not fun to talk about and you don't want to be the Debbie Downer. So it became kind of a almost a rift in our marriage because I also didn't want to talk about it all the time with my husband. I didn't want to push too hard. I didn't want to be needy. And he didn't seem as committed to it as me. So it became kind of a sore spot, but unfair for me to hold him to the fire about that because I didn't speak up. I was fine. I was really good at being fine. And, you know, mostly fine is not fine. It's usually the opposite when people say they're fine. And so I did finally conceive. I still believe that my son is a miracle because after the fact, I learned of the mass amount of endometriosis, like the condition of my body. It's a miracle that he survived it and made it to conception and then birth after learning everything later after the fact. I'm like, he's always been fast. I think he just got through there so fast that he made it. So I just have the one, and that's why. I would have had more. It wasn't in the cards. I crafted an answer that made everybody feel good when they would ask, you know, like, why don't you have more kids? I have a sister-in-law who has 6. They're, you know, just more and more and more kids. And so not wanting to be vulnerable and talk about that with people, you know, just coming up with an answer that makes the person opposite of you feel good. So like, hey, well, when your first one's perfect, you don't have any more, right? Things like that all the time that aren't always, they're not the truth. They're not your truest answer, right? Nobody wants to talk about feeling like, well, maybe I didn't deserve more kids, or maybe there's something wrong with my body. It can't do this thing that you assume it's going to do. Like,
right.
You have one big job and you can't do it. Like, really?
Yeah.
So that was a long journey. I mean, and kind of lonely because I chose to not share it. I chose to hold it close. So I was super excited, obviously, to be a mom because it was such a thing that I thought maybe wouldn't happen. And then I was also exhausted when I had a baby. So then that becomes a whole next journey, right? Like, you wanted this. You don't deserve to be tired. You absolutely can never complain about it because you wanted this so bad. And I know that women go through that. You can't complain. You can never be tired. You need to do all the things. Your house should also be clean and you should excel at all the things, everything, all of it. Never lose your shit. There you go. Never do that. And so I just think that journey happens for women. And if you're not in a space where you're allowing yourself to be honest and ask for help, it can wear on you, you know? And then, of course, then that led to some marriage problems. It's a little bit of rift, obviously, because there's not authenticity. It's not. And so you're kind of holding grudges and not communicating well. And all of it ended up being exactly what we needed because you get tired enough, exhausted enough, then you can't hold it together anymore and you can't be fine. Right. And so that's where the real journey of motherhood and being a wife and being my truest self started. I tell people I have a huge high capacity for work, and that just prolonged, I think, what happens to everybody at some point where they're like, gosh, I'm tired and I need to really own who I actually am. It just took me longer. I think I have just high capacity. I'm just high capacity, like hold it together, hold it together, hold it together for a really long time. Like, I think I was probably 34 before I was thinking, but there's something different. I bet there's a different way to do this.
How old was your son at that point?
It's probably 2.
Okay.
About 2.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you, and I'm asking because I feel like too, it took me a while to be like, I don't know. And a lot of women my age, I think, are still I still haven't figured it out. And I think it's because they're so bogged down and they don't have time to figure it out. But did you have like people pleasing tendencies, overachiever tendencies, any of that you think maybe played into that?
Definitely. So, I had in my head that once I graduated high school, moved on, and I was no longer in, like, I wasn't beholden to any parents, any of that it would all go away. Distance. But you pick up a lot of those things and they go with you, and you don't have to give them permission. They just come along. And so, being raised in an alcoholic home, you feel like if you're perfect, everything will be okay. It's not true. It's never true. It's never proven to be true. And yet I was the oldest. So that's probably fairly typical. I am an achiever. I'm a doer. I'm a fixer, all those things. Peacekeeper. I tried so hard. And I never realized that none of that had to do with me. Literally none of it was my fault. It wasn't my responsibility. I had to live in it. So all of those things came with me. They didn't stay, even though I moved away and moved on. And so, yeah. And feelings were not safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were vulnerable. And so you're like, nope, I'm good. You can't touch me. You can't hurt me. I'm going to carry on. And when I'm at school, not one person will have any idea any of this is going on. No one will know, right? So it was a protection, and it was necessary then. But when I got married to this person who was not mean, was not an alcoholic, was not doing those things, I was still living with those rules, right? And so it doesn't work. So there is a lot of self-protection. I didn't need it anymore though, but I held on to it anyway. So yeah, it was a lot of fake, but not because I was trying to impress people. I think because I didn't know I could let that go. I hadn't figured that out yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
A really good visual of that, I went on this trip with my mom once, and part of it was doing this zip line. It was like this zip line through this, through trees. That's how it goes. So you have to harness up, right? You put on the harness, and it's all there for your safety. And I am not joking you. I was probably halfway through the zip line before I remembered I can let go. I don't have to hold my own weight. I can let go and just like, woo.
Mm-hmm.
But my nature was, you have to do it. You have to hang on. You need to, like, wow, that's very telling about what's going on in my head. Right.
Did it land for you like that in that moment? Or was it later where you're like, whoa, what a metaphor for my life?
Well, in that moment, I don't think it had come full circle, but I was like, what the heck? Like, you stood there the whole time they put all that stuff on you. What did you think it was for? Right? Like, what is going on in your head? So it wasn't until a little later then it became really clear. Okay, maybe you're hanging on when letting go is a better choice.
Yeah. Yeah. And letting people like your husband catch you, be your harness.
Yes. For sure.
Such a good metaphor.
It really is. It really is. And we have those. Those are available to us, I feel like, in our life all the time if we're just watching it all. You're like, oh, look at that.
Look at that. Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
I want to go back just for a moment to the piece where you said, you had won, you knew you were done because of your body.
Yep.
Your body decided that for you, but how you crafted an answer that made everyone else feel good.
Yep.
I know people know that they do that, but like for you to put it into words, there's some codependency though in there in trying to make sure everyone else's experience is okay, even though yours is not okay. But like, I don't want you to feel bad about it.
Definitely codependency. And I think that it's funny. The statement, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
I look back over my life and the lesson of codependency was available lots of times and I was not ready for it. I resisted it. It sounded like I strive to be very independent, and codependency sounds like the opposite of that. So I resisted it. And I didn't understand what it really means. Like the fact that I can be okay even if the people around me aren't.
Right.
There's permission to do that. That's okay. And I didn't get it until there was this one book. And it was about codependency, but they didn't put it in the title. So I got sucked in, and it was exactly what needed to happen. And it said, when helping others is hurting you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that sounds vaguely familiar, right? And it explained it in a way that at that point in my life, I could hear it. So I finally understood what that meant. And when I was in high school, our guidance counselor had a class. I don't even remember, it was called Human Relations. And there was this square. And I don't know if everyone's learned this, but it was 4 different squares. And one would say, I'm okay, you're okay. I'm okay, you're not okay. I'm not okay, you're okay. And I'm not okay, you're not okay. And how we live in them, and like, you can be okay or not okay, and it doesn't matter about everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds so simple, but when you're trying to live it and you're so used to responding to the energy around you to keep yourself safe or whatever, it's really hard to set it down.
Mm-hmm.
It's very challenging to set it down. You think you are, and then you're like, nope, still holding it, still carrying it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a huge lesson there. And this was new. This was a new lesson for me this year too. I'm not going around being like, you're codependent, but I see it everywhere now. I'm like, wow. And back to the permission piece, it's like, you can just let them not be okay. Like, you're not doing anything to harm them. You speaking your truth is not doing anything. You're not trying to make them be uncomfortable, but it's okay if they are.
Exactly. Yes. And sometimes it's actually your job to not help them be okay, because it's their job to figure out how. And as a mom, that's huge, because that's probably one of the hardest things you do as a mom is watch your kids not be okay, because they have to figure it out, because they have to mess through it. They have to just grapple a little bit. And that's probably the hardest thing about being a mom.
Yeah. Now, my oldest one is only 6. So, but between the conversations I've had with other women and, having people in my sphere with older children, I know it's coming, and I can't imagine, because I feel like any hurt that my daughter feels, like I feel it.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even when they're little, though, I think as moms, it's hard to watch, they'll make a choice and then they lose a toy or whatever. And when they look like their heart is broken over it, the last thing you want to do is maintain the consequence. I used to tell my son all the time, like, look, I hate consequences. They're terrible for me too. If you think this is fun for a mom, you're wrong.
Yeah.
It's not fun. I do this for you because it's my job and I take it very serious. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's not fun. It's not easy. It's hard on purpose.
It's hard.
And for a good reason. But yeah.
We're very much in that stage.
Yeah, I know. I remember that stage. My son would come in. Oh, he'd get in trouble. He would play with something. He'd get very frustrated. Then this toy is just making him mad. I'm like, toys are fun. When they're not fun anymore, then we put them on the fridge. Everything had to live on our fridge because he couldn't get there. And he's like, you don't want that, because no, it's my toy. It's mine. I want it. And you're like, well, look, but see how you're acting. It's not good. I'm going to help you take some space from this toy. And I was not a yeller, not a freaker outer, but he would go away and be so sad. And then he'd come back in the kitchen usually and he'd be like, are you happy now, mommy? Like, what in the world? Like, was not unhappy. But you can't explain that to a 3-year-old or whatever. And I'm like, does he know the impact of that voice, or is that just what's in his head, right? Of that little voice asking you, are you happy now, mommy? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I have moments too with my 6-year-old where she's very intuitive, which a lot of, I would say most kids are very intuitive. They just pick up on the littlest things, but she'll be like, "Are you mad? Like, are you?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. Like, I'm frustrated about something else. It has nothing to do with you. You don't need to do anything. It'll be okay. We're going to move through it." Or even when she's just watching, like my husband and I, if we talk about something that we're like passionate about, good or bad, not fighting with each other, but we'll like raise our volume and like our energy around the topic gets bigger. And she's like, "Are you guys arguing?" Like, no, no, no. We're not arguing. Everything is okay here. We're just really excited about this topic and have strong feelings about it. And I really try to articulate to her, like, this is what you're seeing. Everything's okay. And you don't have to do anything to fix it.
Yeah. But also then, being able to let them know sometimes people are angry. And sometimes you're going to be angry. What's okay to do? Like, what's a way that you can move through that without it being devastating to you or whoever's around you? That was a hard thing for me, having grown up in a house where, no, I didn't share my emotions. There was no space for them. I don't know. It sounds kind of harsh to say no one cared. I don't know that it's that no one cared. People with addictions are selfish by nature. Like they can't help that. So they're not really noticing you. And then, if you're overwhelmed by all of your life circumstances, there just wasn't space for it. And so that was a skill I didn't even have. And now I'm a mom and I'm like, I gotta help this kid have emotions and know what they are and know how to deal with them. And so I guess maybe we might have learned it together. He learned it at like 2 and I learned it at like 34. Whatever. Yeah. It all works out.
You're right.
Just freaking learn it, right?
Right.
Someday.
Eventually we'll get there. Yeah.
Seriously. It's probably not that far from true.
Yeah.
So
well, and you said your son's a miracle. Believe it. I believe our kids are chosen for us. And I have learned a multitude of lessons from mine. I know that. So
yeah,
one way or another.
Yeah. He is a miracle. I believe also that he saved my marriage because I knew I had these relationship issues. They were me. It was me not being in the relationship fully. And I suspect, I had no way of knowing. I suspect if we had not had him, I would have left. Wow. He was the teeth. Like, no, wow. I can't do it. I can't do that because I knew enough. Like, I know my husband is not a bad human. He's not a bad dad. He's not unsafe. There's no reason that I need to take distance and create distance for my son, right? I knew all of that. And like, so that then became selfish. That was a selfish choice of mine. So I did the work, like buckle down and do the work. I don't know if I would have done it if he hadn't been part of our life. I mean, probably not. I probably wouldn't have. I would have been like, yeah, I'm out. Gotta go. Too hard. Can't do it.
Yeah.
So another reason he's a miracle, right? Like I needed this little human in my life because I needed to do the work. It was necessary and valuable. And sometimes that outer accountability is so much stronger than inner accountability, right? I will be accountable to you, but maybe not to myself.
Right. And I think too, had you not learned the lesson there, it probably would have circled around somewhere else until you did.
I mean, they don't go away. Those
no.
lessons, right? The ones that you need the most, they show up again for sure.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. And thank you for sharing the vulnerable pieces. And I so resonate with the idea of, working through your stuff and owning your stuff. And the first actual podcast episode that I put out is about this philosophy that my husband and I have that we've named self, spouse, spawn. So like we have to be good first for ourselves. So like taking care of yourself and, working on your stuff. And then we make sure that we're a good parental unit, that our relationship is good and solid so that we can be good parents. And then our children come third. But it's just because like we have to take care of ourselves and each other to even be able to show up for them in the best way.
And it's true. And it seems it makes so much sense when you get it, but life can be so messy and busy that you can kind of lose touch sometimes too.
Yeah.
And not make the connections and the decisions and those things that keep yourself okay and your relationship with your spouse okay. Yeah. It's easy to put that stuff on the back burner. You take for granted that it's just going to be fine, and it's not. You have to pay attention. You've got to pay attention.
Yeah. And then give yourself the permission to take care of yourself, which a lot of people think is selfish. It's like right up there with like, you wanted this. What do you mean you're tired? Or like, you have children, go home.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yes. So true.
And I feel like social media too totally amplifies it, because even if and I found myself, thanks to the algorithm, in this really safe little bubble of moms on Instagram who are just like, motherhood is hard, but it's okay. And we're going to share our story so other people don't feel alone when they're in their heart. And inevitably, every once in a while, some rando middle-aged man pops in. You signed up for this. Like, why?
Right. Exactly. You're like, well, thank you for bringing your voice here. You can choose to exit, please.
Next. Oh my gosh.
Yes, exactly. That reminds me of a conversation I had with my brother one time, and it just shows sometimes we budge into conversations where we have no place. You just kind of don't. My sister and I were laughing. We were talking about, I think we're talking about menstrual cycles, probably. So I'm 9 years older than my brother. I'm like 4.5 years older than my sister. These are half siblings, right? That I grew up with. We're talking about this, and he is like arguing with us about it. Both of us are looking at each other like, are we in the Twilight Zone right now? How would, first of all, you're a dude. Second of all, you're 9 years younger than us. How do you even like have anything to say? But he was also, in his defense, in that age where, he's trying to know something, and that's the moment he decided to know stuff. Like, look, we're gonna just give you all the grace because this is ridiculous. You should stop talking.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, that's so kind of you to give him grace while you're being mansplained about a period.
He's telling us all the things about it, and we're like, well, that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. Which, you probably read in a book or online somewhere, which we all read, and doesn't hold true for so many of us. So when we have complications around our period, we think something's wrong with us.
It's yes, exactly. Oh my gosh. So funny. So yes, there's sometimes when in a conversation you should just be silent.
And that's you're allowed. You're allowed to be silent. I honestly, some of the most impactful people that I've been around have been the quietest in the loudest rooms and are just sitting there taking it all in. And they might say one thing, but the one thing that they say is worthwhile instead of just filling the dead air.
That's so true.
Men and women both. Like, we both do this. It's not all a man problem, but
yes, for sure.
So going back to the permission piece, because I love it, and it is a recurring theme on the podcast, which I also love. Hopefully we all step into giving ourselves more permission, but what is some permission that you would give yourself if you went back?
Yeah, I talk about this a lot. So after becoming a mom, and then with still having a little bit of that achiever and like listening to all the outside voices and giving a lot of value to that, I second guessed myself a lot when honestly I knew how to be the best parent for my kid. But I second guessed myself because there were a lot of messages in the world. There were messages from pediatricians. There were messages from other moms. There were just messages, right? Generations of moms. So the grandmas have a different opinion than my friends, than books, than all of that. And the permission that I would give myself, and this is going to sound really blatant, but is to lie. So I'll give context to that. I raised a child that, what do babies have? 3 jobs? They need to eat and sleep and poop. And he pooped really great. And the other 2, he was really not exceptional at. And it makes you feel like, kind of like, what is happening? This kid doesn't eat well. He hates sleeping. So you feel like I must be failing here. And I would give myself permission to lie, and not to the people that really care, that are really asking me how they can help or how's it going, but just those more surface conversations. And people are like, oh, how's he sleeping? Great. Really good. Because otherwise I found myself all the time in conversations where I'm defending myself because yep, I tried that. Yep, I tried that. Yep, tried that. And then I would feel so defensive and like, well, did I try hard enough? When I know how I'm parenting and I know I'm showing up as the best way I can, and every kid's different, right? And so I would totally give myself permission to lie and be like, we're good. Yep, he eats great. Breastfeeding's going smashingly. Like, I would just lie.
Yeah.
They're never gonna know, and they're not gonna ask again. And
Yeah. It's so interesting too, because it's like the moment you say something's not going great, you've opened the door for them to insert their 2 cents. And again, a lot of the time, they should not be talking on the topic at all.
Yeah, and I try to stay mindful of that now that I have a 17-year-old and I have friends who have babies, or, gosh, my siblings are much younger on my dad's side and they just have had babies. And yeah, I don't give advice unless they ask. And then I usually ask more questions. Like, because every baby is different, right? My kid still doesn't sleep. Okay. That was not a parenting problem. He's wired like that, and it's okay. Let me help him function in a world where you're supposed to be up and at him in the morning, when apparently his body wants to sleep then and not at night. Okay. But yeah, I would just lie.
I love that. I love it so much, because again, we're like, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, don't that. But you're like, nope, there are scenarios where it is perfectly okay and nobody gets hurt.
Yep, I would definitely lie more.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Especially to like the first time brand new moms, where, like you said, you think but all it takes is like 1 ounce of doubt and you're questioning everything.
Exactly.
I love that. That's fantastic advice. Maybe some of my favorite advice so far. And there's been really good advice, but it's just so simple. You're just like, just lie.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes, just lie.
I think too, even in everyday conversations, like, the people when they're like, hey, did you have a good weekend? And your weekend was terrible. You're just like, yes, thanks. Because you don't need to get into it with them. They're not going to understand, but you also know your people where you're like, it wasn't fantastic. And they're going to go, tell me what's going on. How are you really? How can I help? Those are your people. Okay, I want to talk more about what you're doing now on top of all of the other 14, 15, 16 things that you do. Yeah, let's talk about feel, do, be better, right?
Okay, so that just, like I said, that just evolved from listening to a lot of conversations and listening to how we show up, and the struggle that we all, they're similar. Not everybody's struggle is the same, but it's similar, and everybody wants to feel better. I think that's what we're actually striving for. And sometimes looking for that one feeling and finding out that it's available to you right now. Actually, it's not far away. It's not on the other side of the next accomplishment. But you can still accomplish things by feeling better. So, like, kind of flipping that script. So that's kind of the thought process for me that evolved into, it's time. I felt this nudge for a long time. I'm going to go ahead and take that leap. And then, you know how they say, if there's something out in the world that you wish you could find in the world and you haven't exactly found it, then maybe you need to create it. So I just decided to jump right into these better energy adventure, is what I call it. And I call it an adventure, not a retreat, because I know retreat can be different things for different people. Retreats and conferences, I've been to many, and I feel like there's an expectation that when I go to a retreat and a conference, I have to learn things. I have to participate in a very cognitive level, and I don't want that. I want to just go away, and I want to have decisions taken from me so that I can literally arrive.
Yes.
And then it's awesome. And all I had to do was arrive. I don't have to decide what I'm eating even. I don't have to decide where I'm sleeping. I can look at the itinerary and go, oh my gosh, absolutely, I want to do that. I definitely want to participate in a sound bath. Have I been to one before? No, but it sounds amazing. I want to do that. I definitely want to go for a guided hike. I definitely want to do yoga outside. I definitely want to sit around the fire pit with these other women who are willing to show up as themselves, not bring everything from home. No, because we're trying to just go regenerate like new energy and better energy. So when we return to our lives that we're creating, that we're happy about, that we wanted, will be so much better when we get back there. So that's the better energy adventure. And that's why I call it an adventure and not a retreat. It has some retreat-ish elements, but I have zero expectation that you're going to have an enlightenment, that you're going to meditate perfect, that you're going to, you know what if you came and you decided, yeah, those things that you had planned, I don't want to. Okay. You don't have to. So it's an adventure. And that's why I made it, because that's what I'm looking for. I just want to show up. I just want to show up and be in this experience. First one is in Sedona. We're going to Sedona. It ends up being on leap year, which is awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's February 29th through March 2nd. So I didn't intend for it to be on leap year. That's just how it worked out. But we're going to stay at the Uzu Dome, which is amazing. It's a dome. And so once you're inside, it's like silent. It's luxury. The gal that owns it is the most adorable human. And she's so excited for this better energy adventure to come there, because she's like, that's why I built it. That's why we've made it what it is. This is exactly what we want to happen there. We want people to feel refreshed and recharged and rejuvenated. It's like, can house like 24 people. I'm maxing out at like 15 at the most, probably 12 is best, so that we have plenty of space and it's not so big. So we're doing.
Sounds so fun.
Mm-hmm.
And Sedona is amazing.
Yes, it's like magic.
Yeah. I believe there's a vortex there. Correct me
There's
if I'm
multiple.
wrong. Okay.
There's multiple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to live in Asheville, North Carolina, and there was one there as well. Apparently, I knew it, like the place just feels magical. You know, you're like, something is different about this place. So yeah, very
And
cool.
it's the energy.
Yeah.
It's the energy. So why not go there and absorb all of that? Because then you bring it back. You bring it back. It's in you, right? And so how can it not follow you and then spread to your family and your friends and all those people that you see day to day? So.
Yeah. I want to circle back for just a moment to reiterate, and I know we both know this, but like the accessing of feeling now, like what is it that you want to feel? Start tapping into that now. Can you talk a little bit on that, when sometimes those feel very far away, when you're like in the mud up to your knees, that can feel really hard.
You know, interesting that you bring that up. I think a thing that I take for granted a little bit, maybe on the other side of this self-awareness journey, is mindset, because it's so powerful. It's so powerful because our life is literally a string of choices. Mm-hmm. It's a string of choices. And maybe we feel like, oh my gosh, well, I made a bad choice and now I'm going to have all these terrible consequences. Maybe not. And maybe your choices aren't good or bad. Maybe they're just choices. Every day, they're just choices. So if we talk about how we want to feel, I can feel happy. I can feel content. I can feel joy and alignment when I'm cooking dinner for my family. If in my head, I'm like, I'm choosing this. I am choosing this. Because do I actually have to do any of the things that are in my day? Do you? If you really think about it, if you dial it down, do you actually have to be doing 90% of the things that you do every day? Shift the script and you say, I get to, I choose to, I'm choosing to do this. What feeling do I want? I want to feel peace. Peace over everything else, right? Peace, aligned, energetic. Well, I can pick that. I can go into a hard conversation identifying that I want to feel peace. How would I do that? Well, maybe not hang on so tight to my opinion. No, because that doesn't feel peaceful. When you're hanging on so tight, maybe go in with curiosity instead. So if the feeling is peace, how does peace look? And let's be honest, you're going to go into certain things and you're going to be like, well, that didn't feel like peace. Okay. Choose again.
Right.
Choose again and choose again. Or maybe you don't even know. I was just in a little group earlier, and maybe you don't even know for sure what feeling you actually want. So try things. Maybe you don't like how you feel right now, right? And you're going through your day and you're like, and you're feeling like things are drudgery. Like, oh, I have to clean my house, and I have to fold my laundry, and I have to watch this, and I have to pay these bills, and I have to do all these things, and no one helps me. And this is how you're going through your day. And if you try something different and see if it feels better, right? So maybe you do need to feed your kids, because that seems like a good choice. But maybe you don't have to spend an hour in the kitchen afterwards cleaning up.
Right.
Maybe you leave that there and go do something with your kids. Or maybe you leave that there and you leave your kids with your husband and you go for a walk. Or maybe you just add in a different thing, like shift, and then see, does that feel better? Is that the feeling I like or not? And maybe it's not. So then you try something different and just pay attention. How do I feel? Oh, I like this feeling. Good. How did I get to it? Maybe I'll do more of that. And maybe you can do the exact same thing and just pick the feeling, change your script, right? I think there's a lot of paths to get to the feeling we want.
Yeah, totally. And I can attest that this works. I used to work a job that I did not love.
Yeah.
And I was so in it. Like and my husband and I worked at the same company and for a long time. So I would complain. I would grumble under my breath. I would get on, the app, the messaging app, and complain to my coworker friends. We would complain back and forth. And then I would complain to my husband, who is in his own little office right over there, and it was like 24/7, like 24/7. If we were mad about something or if I was mad about something, it carried through our entire life, it felt like. But I knew I couldn't keep doing this. So I started a sticky note. And every time I realized something about my job that I liked, I wrote it on the sticky note until I had like 5 or 7 things. And I stuck them on my computer and I left it there as a reminder every single day. As soon as I started to dip, I'm like, well, I get to work remotely. That's pretty cool. I have coworkers I really enjoy. That's nice. Like, this is interesting, and it's like, it helped so much. It helped.
Yeah.
So, and because of the weight that's carried in our whole lives, because we both work together, like, it was a huge shift for our house and our family.
Yeah. It's like, what you focus on, you're going to get. It happens. It absolutely happens. What you focus on, then you see more of it and more of it and more of it.
Yeah.
Right. Do you remember those pictures? I don't even know if they still are out anymore, where it looks like just a bunch of, probably, I think it's triangles. I don't know, but they're all put together and it just looks like a big mishmash of color.
The Magic Eye books.
Yeah. And then you stare and then eventually you're like, whoa, totally different picture.
Yeah.
We have that capability.
Yeah.
We can do that any day, every day. What's the statement? Choose a better feeling thought.
Yeah.
Choose a better feeling thought. I listen to Mel Robbins. I don't know. This circle probably is familiar with Mel Robbins, but she was just talking the other day about changing the way you show up and speak about things. So maybe we could talk about things we can do instead of what we can't. I can't run 5 miles. Okay. Can you run 1? What can you do? How can you show up? Right? Instead of I can't. And then I also listened to another little tip that was talking about changing from apologizing, that if we could stop apologizing about things, like if you need to apologize to someone because you were in the wrong, please do that. But otherwise, when we say, like, the example being late, I'm so sorry I was late. Instead, lead in with thankfulness. Thank you for waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not intuitive maybe, but it can be.
Mm-hmm.
I had to send an email. I got to send an email. I was asked
I like how you caught yourself there.
about being a youth group leader. Do you want to help? Your name came up. I don't want to, really. If I'm being completely honest, I don't. And this person deserves a response from me, not just to be ghosted. And so I started the email, sorry for my delay. And I'm like, nope, delete. Thank you for giving me time to consider your request.
Yeah.
And then I went on from there, and it just changes the entire dynamic and the tone of the conversation. Instead of,
Yes.
I'm sorry, and no, thank you for giving me time to consider. And then I can say the same thing after that.
Yeah, I was a big apologizer too. So I've started adopting this. I'm not perfect, but the energy shift behind it, so good. You shift from like a shame to like a, okay, thank you for waiting on me. I appreciate that. Let's move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. I recently met in our group, Wendy Harrop. She recommended a book, which the title escapes me right now. But in this book, the author talks about your words are your wand. And you have to consider what you're saying and speaking into your life word by word. And it's a practice. It's a practice. But if you start making these small shifts, you're going to notice the way you talk about everything can begin to change and manifest in your experience.
It's true. It's really true. I don't know if it's the same book, but it talked about your brain doesn't know the difference.
Yeah.
If you're telling a truth or a lie, it doesn't know the difference.
Yeah.
So
that's so interesting. I love this so much, but with all the things that you do, how do you reconnect to yourself on top of, motherhood? How do you reconnect to yourself?
Right. So I'm really aware of things that shift my mood if it needs to be shifted. So again, with the energy, chasing the energy that we want. I know when I'm not in that space, right?
Yeah.
I know that. And so to reconnect with myself means to get back to the energy and the alignment that I know I want. And so I pay attention to what are those energy givers for me. They're different for everybody. And so that whole idea of self-care, I think, can get kind of morphed a little bit, right? So it doesn't have to be like a pedicure. It doesn't have to be those kinds of things, right? Whatever it is that gives you that energy back. And so for me, outside, I have to go outside and move. And so I do those things. I make sure that I do them. I am happy to invite my family along to do them with me. And that's great if they want to. And if they don't, I go anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I go anyway. I think it's hugely valuable because not only does it get me back to centered again, it shows them by my example that that's valuable and important and worth your time. It doesn't make you a bad mom or a bad partner or anything. So I think it's doubly beneficial because I do maintain that. And I can tell, and sometimes we all do it. We are really good about it for a while and then we'll fall. Yeah. Like we'll make other things a priority and we're like, wow, I wonder why I'm so cranky. We know exactly why we're cranky.
Yes.
We're just choosing to think, now I don't need to do those things anymore. Yes, you do.
Right.
So.
Right. Oh, I can so attest to that for sure. I'm in a little dip right now. I'm like, get back on it.
Well, and your family knows. Like I've done it for so long now that they know. So like instead of saying, geez, mom, you're crabby, or my husband saying, you're a little cranky, it's more like, does you want to go for a walk? Do you want to go for a run? Do you need some time to go for a run? And I can take that. I get it. Because I'm like, yes, you're right. I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Shove me the door.
Oh, I love when they my husband's like, do you need to meditate? Because I've got this under control. I'm like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Like shoot.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Can you please tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can follow you, or if this adventure sounds exciting to them, where they can learn some more about that?
So I feel like I'm on Instagram and Facebook and like I'm 3 different people. But the best place right now to find me is Feel, Do, Be Better. It's the same on Facebook and Instagram, and the website's the same. It's feeldobebetter.com. And so all the information about the trip is on the website. There's more about the community, kind of what inspired it. And I host some things locally. I don't know how many of your listeners are in Nebraska. I feel like I'm the lone Nebraska person sometimes, but I host some local like hikes. We do just a weekend hike sometimes.
That's cool.
Because sometimes it's scary to do things alone. So
agreed.
Yeah. Feel, Do, Be Better.
I really love that. I'm glad you said that too, because I definitely, there are times where I want to go take a walk somewhere else, but I'm like, I've only lived in this area a couple of years. I'm like, I don't really know if it's safe for me to go do that by myself, but if I had a couple other women with me.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So fun. Thank you, Sadie, so much for being here and for sharing all of this. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate it. It was
Absolutely.
super fun. Great conversation.
Absolutely. And we'll have all the information in the show notes. So be sure to give Sadie a follow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Having a Mom Moment podcast. Please be sure to follow and rate if you love what you're hearing. And come follow me on socials at Having a Mom Moment on Instagram or on Facebook. I'd love to hear from you, so shoot me a message if there's something you particularly loved or something you'd like to hear about on a future episode. So you can message me on either platform or send me an email at havingamamoment@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. In case no one has told you today, you are amazing, you are loved, and I am so proud of the beautiful human that you are. Take care.